Hey guys, it's Chris Truitt from the Reluctant Somm. We're really excited about season 3. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Just wanted to give another little note that if you like what we're doing and you want to show us some support, reviews, likes, shares, word of mouth, all of these things really help us. We'll also be creating a newsletter this year that focuses on some of our favorite restaurants, favorite wine lists, favorite places to eat, as well as just some really cool people in the industry, as well as some other insights into what's going on in our field of profession. I also wanted to let you know that on that is where we'll be updating everybody on all of our pop-ups and any collaboration events or anything that we're doing. So if you want to keep track of us, that's the best way. Also, if you're not already following us on Instagram, you can follow us at Reluctant Somm on Instagram and keep up with us. Give us likes. Cheers.
So now I start.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Ali, welcome to the podcast. Excited to have you here. I am just now tasting your wines for the first time. Unfortunately, I skipped them on the Helm Fest because it was hectic, busy, and we had a 2.5-year-old we had to get home to. So I'm really excited to taste these, talk to you about some of the other wines you guys are making. But you're here from Luddite Wines, if I'm saying it correctly.
Yes, yeah, you got it right.
Luddite Wine Farm. At first I was reading it, I was like, is it a play on word Luddite? And I was like, no, Luddite. Because specifically, right when you open it, the quote is, technology and mechanism will never be a substitute for passion.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds like something a Luddite would say.
It's good. It's a good quote, yeah.
So happy to have you here. Thanks for making the travel. I know that you've been out here running around for a couple weeks. And I'm very thankful to Peter for introducing you to me. And I would love if you could give us a quick rundown on the winery, your life. Did you grow up on the winery?
Yeah.
All those things. And you're the winemaker now.
Yeah. Can you start taking that?
Yeah. So if you want to start us off, wherever you want to start us off.
Yeah,
Usually
cool.
I say, where did wine come into your life? But if you grew up on the winery, then
Yes,
it's a little harder.
Well, I can explain that part as well. And thank you for having me. This is, I'm glad you read what the Luddites are. This is very fancy for me, very exciting. So start on a background of the farm. My parents both studied at Elsenburg, the university in Stellenbosch that does the wine and viticulture in South Africa. And my dad was a winemaker about like 400 meters from where we are now at a wine farm called Beaumont. And he basically met someone who said, I really like what you're doing. I think you should go on and do your own thing. So we started Luddite in 2000. My mom studied viticulture, so she was the vineyards, my dad the winemaker. And we bought a 17-hectare farm, which I think is like 42 acres. Mm-hmm. I spent all week saying I'm going to get the conversion right, and here we are again. Have not done it. So
it's like 2.5 acres, 2.67 acres or something like that.
It's like doing the weather conversions and the rest. I'm like, anyway, I'm sorry. It's small. It's a small family farm. Mm-hmm. And we're focusing on Chenin and Shiraz. So, I had one wine Shiraz and then started with the Chenin, and now we are 4 wines, still keep it nice and simple, Shiraz blend, Chenin, and a Chenin blend. And then, I grew up on the farm, so I guess it was always there. But we've had lots of chats about it. My mom says she laughs because out of all the 3 kids, to save money, we still handpick, but early days we would get all our friends to pick the grapes. Mm-hmm. And she said I was the one kid who was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Why are you making me do this? And all the other kids were like, managed to do a full crate, and out of all of us, we 3 siblings, I'm the one who put my hand up to go farming.
That's funny.
Farming isn't easy, so my dad always jokes that I'm the second idiot to go farming in the family, so second generation. And being with Peter has made me go back and think. My dad would make his wines in other cellars, and I used to take fermenting juice and add water and squish berries and bottle and label my own wine. So I think maybe it was always there. And so I actually have a chefing background. I have a Cordon Bleu certificate. I studied at a chef school called Silwood. It's kind of like the sister school to one in Ireland called Ballymaloe. And then decided, I've been chefing. I think I put my hat off to chefs. It's long hours, amazing work, but I think you have to, that very, what's that kitsch saying that says, if you love what you do, never work a day in your life. And I just didn't think that was chefing in me.
Sure.
But food and wine go hand in hand, so I'm really grateful for that background. So I asked my dad if I could join the farm, and he originally said, no, I have someone already. go and figure out if you want to do this. And I was probably 20 then, 21. So I worked in a wine bar, and I was a wine stewardess at a wine farm in Constantia. And yeah, just kind of what I've always grown up with is wine for me is just bringing people together, opening a bottle of wine and sharing food, sharing stories, and just keeping, being happy. And I thought that's what I want to do. I want to make wine with my dad, make the best wine I can make, and bring people together at a table, and everyone should be happy and smiling at the end of the evening. So the following year, when I said to him, okay, I think I want to do this, in 2017, I did my first harvest with him. Yeah. And I've done northern and southern hemisphere harvests, and I think 2021, 22 was when I finally committed to the farm. So my parents are young, they're 60. I think they'll be happy if I say that, but no, they're definitely, that's young. And so they're not retiring. I still think, for me, it's weird to say I'm the winemaker. We're still a family farm, and we still will work together. My dad and I will, there's certain things we have strong points. One of mine is I'm not a good maths person. So my dad has said, until the end of time, he'll always help me with proportional maths. And I don't have a science background. So for me, wine has been learning, doing, seeing, tasting, drinking a lot, which is not a bad thing. And so that's kind of my little story, I guess.
That's awesome. That's a little story. I don't know if I would say that. It's pretty cool, you know.
I don't know how little it was, but I tried.
No. I mean, again, so I always say, the intro could be 10 to 15 minutes, and it's always kind of one of those things where it's like, some people go really long, some people go really short, and I go like, it's time for me now, because I get lulled in, like I'm listening to the podcast, like, wow, this is so great. I'm learning so much.
And I'm like, I could say more, but shame.
No.
Ask me questions about the farm.
No, that's fine. I mean, there's so many cool things, I've been looking things up, learning a little bit more about kind of what you guys are doing there. There's questions about like current day things like, tariffs, the Helischen Fest, all kinds of stuff that I want to cover. But to kind of high spot some of the things from your story, I guess it's interesting for me. So dad was a winemaker, mom was the farmer, or the vineyard manager, however it would be said. So when your dad says you're the second idiot to join the farm, does he say your mom's the first idiot to do the vineyards?
Good question. I'll ask him that, but I think maybe no, both of them.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, that's so funny. Yeah. No, I think it's really cool. I think, you touched on something that's really beautiful in a lot of ways, in the sense of like, it feels weird to say that you're the winemaker because, your mom and dad are still very much like present, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's great to see in like second generation wineries. And, we had Claire Ramey sitting here in the same seat as you before, and she was kind of saying the same thing, like her and her brother do things, dad's still involved, like they're kind of like learning where the boundaries are and learning how to like agree on things. And it's really cool, I think, to kind of get to the point where you guys are at now, and, where you're going to continue to learn. And I'm sure there's limitless amounts to learn, especially with a non-science background, a lot of experimentation.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The culinary background is something that was really interesting to me, because that's also something that Peter has from Culture Wine Co.
Yes, I need to see him cook. I haven't seen it yet, but I believe it. I 100% believe it.
I was going to say, is that a prerequisite to get into Culture Wine Co? You have to have a culinary background now.
No, so I remember when Peter came to the farm, we had a representation for Luddite, but it just wasn't a good fit. I think for me, especially now that I'm a lot more involved, I want to work with someone who's really passionate and someone who wants to have like-mindedness. And I think Peter came to us when we were kind of finishing harvest, and I remember my dad saying, I have this meeting with this guy, and Peter came in all serious, and I think my dad said to him, well, come over for a braai. A braai is a barbecue. Okay. But you'll argue with South Africans that a braai is much better. Cool. So he said, okay, come over for a braai later. And I think they were packing for Africa Burn. And then that was kind of the connection, because Peter loves going to Burning Man, and my family's been doing Africa Burn for a long time. That's so I think that was kind of the, And just that we opened our house, and Peter likes that, so it's cool. And I said to him, this trip, we need to do something where we cook and do the wine together. Yeah. Because my mom and I do four charity events in the year, so we'll cook the wine and pay the food. We raise money for an education foundation, or my dad loves the ocean, so he always does 2 charities for NSRI. So so I still cook sometimes, but I would say definitely more wine and farming. The cooking background is not there that much. But yeah, my mom said I mustn't be too shy. I have a good palate. So I'll say I think I do have a good palate for food and wine.
Good.
I love eating food. So
that's step one, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like to eat it, maybe it'd be hard to make it, right? You also use this term, you say a wine farm. And I'm not sure if maybe that's just like a local dialect or if maybe there's a separation between the background, like, you know, some of the older wineries, are they considered wineries, or is wine farm just kind of a catch-all term for wineries in the region?
Sure, never thought of that. I know that
Because even online, you guys, you're put Luddite wine farm.
Yeah, I think maybe that's a South African thing.
Okay.
I haven't got the hectares and acres thing right, but I've got an estate fruit and non-estate fruit, which is something we don't use. I just say fruit from the farm, not from the farm.
Right,
so I think that's a South African
That's funny.
thing, or a choice. I mean, a personal choice, I guess. Yeah.
That's cool.
So
No, I was just...
Nothing too technical about that.
I was just curious. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. Another thing that I thought was really fascinating in your story was kind of the kick the bird out of the nest kind of thing, right? Which often feels like a multi-generational winery thing where you come to your dad, you say, I want to be part of this. And he says, go away. Not really, but, you know, go experience some other things, see if this is what you really like. And you did that for a few years from the sound of it. And you came back, you said you want to do it. You're working harvests in North and the South hemispheres. Yeah. Were you doing them kind of in the same year? Because I think a lot of people don't really understand, at least in the wine industry, when we think about wine and we think about harvest, we're like, harvest is between, you know, July and October, but it's inverse in the Southern hemisphere.
Yeah, so I was doing a South African harvest. So end of January we pick quite early to middle March, April, and then come overseas and go, August, September, October. So basically spend most of the year picking grapes and making wine.
Yeah, that's funny.
So now they always got to learn something. I think it's kind of foolish to say you know everything. So for me, I don't have the time to do harvest anymore. But last year I took 2 weeks to go to a wine farm and help out in harvest and just like pick the winemaker's brain and taste. And to be able to do that still is amazing because I don't know how long that's also going to last. So I think winemaking, the sharing of knowledge is so important and amazing how everyone wants to do that. So I'm always grateful that that's something we can do. And I will continue to try and take a week or two, even piggyback it onto a marketing trip where I can go spend time with the winemaker and see what they're doing.
That's cool.
So,
yeah,
forever learning.
Where's some of the places that you did harvest in the Northern Hemisphere?
I've done this one's a funny one, Peter Losses. I went to Michigan, actually.
Cool, yeah,
so
okay.
There's a Facebook group called Traveling Winemakers Living the Dream. And I was like, I think watching TV programs, I wanted to get on a bus and just go through America. So
that's awesome.
Saw a job in Michigan and it was like a few months of it. And I thought, why not? Let me do it. And first time I came to America, I was 20 and that was not the greatest being in the wine industry as 20.
Yeah.
So then I was 21 and I was like, I'm in.
Right.
So that was really cool, learning about hybrid grapes and spent a lot of time in the vineyard and worked in tasting room and then did my little traveling, which was awesome. And then I did in Germany, Rheinhessen. Cool. So worked with not just Riesling. And then Saint Emilion in Bordeaux. That was pretty cool. And then I did a urban winery in Battersea Park in London. That was very interesting.
That's
I think
awesome.
that was always. I actually tried to do one in New York. I was always like, I want to make wine in the city and see what it's like. So I managed to get a job at a place called Black Book, and that was really cool.
That's in New York.
No, this was in Battersea Park.
I'm sorry.
Because they were the first time I heard of urban wineries was in New York. Couldn't get into ones. I just think they were too small. So I got into Battersea Park, and I feel like one of the few people holding onto a barrel with a forklift in the middle of London. So that was a fun memory.
So kind of all over the place, and then in the Southern Hemisphere, do you work with? When you were learning, were you working with other wineries as well in South Africa? Or?
Oh, yeah, I forget. I have worked at Graham Beck, where Peter Ferreira, and Peter's actually taking in Peter Ferreira's Cup Classique now.
Oh,
he's
cool.
phenomenal. I don't know how, he's been in the industry for a long time. He's like a world of knowledge and makes phenomenal bubbles. So it was like a 2-week fast harvest. I think you've read How We Make Wine is we don't want to add anything, just promise there's grapes in the bottle. Then my dad said to me, listen, I think you should work in a big cellar where they make yeast, and you need to learn how to do that stuff.
Sure.
So I was like, I guess. So I went to Graham Beck Robertson, and everyone had their own spanner. You had a walkie-talkie, and you spent like 2 hours every day dragging pipes to one tank to the next.
Yep.
And then after 3 hours, you'd only start working.
Right.
And then my job was like racking a tank, and then the next day filling a tank.
Mm-hmm.
This was the job you had the whole day. And I'm very grateful for how we do things. I'm like, okay, thanks, Dad. That was good lessons.
Yeah.
So yeah, South African wise. And I think I've got a lot of family friends whose dads are winemakers, so I get to spend a lot of time with them chatting.
That's really cool.
But yeah, so.
I love that. I think it's great. You've really touched on kind of like the community perspective of the wine industry, and especially the winemaking industry. You know, I feel like it can be really intimidating sometimes, you know, being in the wine industry, being new to the wine industry, trying to understand wine, you know. But I think when it comes down to it, the people that are like really invested in it are always just like open books and like want to share knowledge and want to encourage other people and share. So I think it's really cool to hear kind of about your background and your history and like where you've worked. Michigan, I was a little out of left field. I wasn't really expecting that.
Yeah, I know. It is a cool one.
Are you going to you have any more plans? I mean, are you going to go for California? I mean, where are you kind of thinking? I didn't get to spend some time with Tegan Passalacqua, so I'm not sure if he's going to put you to work.
I did do 2 weeks in Sicily last year, which
cool.
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
They actually take the berries off the stems of the grapes with this little grid, like properly by hand.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God, we're not actually Luddites. They're really doing it properly by hand.
Yeah.
And that was a good experience. I mean, I wouldn't have said I've drank enough Sicilian whites. Now I can say I have.
Sure.
And it's definitely something I enjoy. Yeah, we'll see. I have some time in September. I think I've got 3 weeks of space. Who knows? Unfortunately, now already, before I've even flown home, I've been told, are you ready to do that tasting on Wednesday? And I'm like, yes. And then I just realized, I'm actually still in the air. I'm sorry.
That's
so
so
marketing, funny. Same as this time, there's a lot of marketing that happens before we harvest. So if I can keep 3 weeks open in September, that would be amazing. And I think for my harvest, I've never really worked with Chenin or Shiraz, which makes no sense, to be honest. So if I do it, it would be something I want to do.
Yeah. No, I think then that's kind of what I was getting at, because I was just thinking about like where you were, and I'm like, no Rhone, you know, no, you know, so it was an interesting path, but equally so. I mean, it feels like they're all incredibly different. They're all incredibly different climates, you know, it's a very different kind of, it's not like you only went to places where they grow Chenin. You only went to places where they grow Syrah. You know, you kind of broaden your horizons.
I think a lot of my harvest came with chatting to someone. They're like, you have to go there.
Yeah.
And then being a kind South African, I'm like, I wouldn't say I knew much about Saint Emilion. And one thing I will remember from there, the wines were pretty good. When I arrived, they had like a bit of issue with Brett. I don't know if that's a taboo to talk about. So they were really cleaning up the cellar. And I would say that's the harvest where I came home and I was like, I'm actually really confident now I can do this, because I felt I was left alone a lot in the cellar. And I remember my dad being like, are you really on your own there? And they would it's the first time I ever tied a harness onto myself and to the roof to do punch downs.
That's so
and
funny.
there's a wild South African like, Dad, look at this. And like throwing myself into the tank. He was like, is there no one else there with you? I'm like, no, man, this is just me in here.
That's awesome.
And I lived in a chateau in Bordeaux, which, I mean, how's that going to happen? And my best friend was visiting me, and I kept saying, come stay in this little palace.
Yeah.
And she never did. And I forget about it. And we were chatting the other day, and I said to her, you know that chateau has been bulldozed down, so we'll never stay there again, and you missed the opportunity to be in a palace in the vineyards in Bordeaux. Like, we have to sit back and think about these amazing moments that I've
lots of great opportunities.
Like, you need to sit back and think, like, that was actually such a cool moment. And in the moment, I didn't think about it that much. So it's nice to look back on that stuff and still be in touch with it. Winery, the winemaker's name was also Alice and Elise. So, yeah. That's
cool. Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's kind of that community in the wine industry is something that's broadened the horizon and allows travel. And I think that's one of the things that's so cool, you know, because like even me as just like Somm or like a wine drinker, wine sales, like whatever side of things, not being a winemaker, you know, people ask, like, where do you want to go travel? And I automatically want to go to wine regions. Like, that's the thing that I'm the most interested in, you know? But at least I have a plan versus going like, oh, I want to go stay in an all-inclusive resort in Mexico.
No, that sounds horrible.
That's not really travel. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry.
I know what you mean, and I agree with you.
Yeah. It's a little less travel, let's say. And you know, you being able to kind of do those things alone is also great, because the solo travel aspect, I think, is something else that's really beautiful in the sense that you get a lot of time to yourself and time to reflect. And what a way to learn.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely.
You're doing it yourself. You're seeing how it's done, or they show you how it's done maybe, and then they leave you alone. And then you get to say like, oh, I wonder if I do this, is this faster? Like, you know, that's awesome. That's what a cool story. And I love the concept of like community and the unification through wine. I think is beautiful. So, so you were going over kind of the timestamps of like when you guys opened, started with Shiraz, started with Chenin, and you started talking about the blends. So I'm kind of interested to hear about the blends. What other grapes go into that? Is there anything else you're considering making like a single bottling of, or, you know, is that maybe wine club only? I don't know.
So we do make like single bottlings. I think sometimes that annoys people because it's always a barrel and then they want more of it and you don't have it. So to go to market, we always have the 4 wines. And then for me in 2017, when I first joined, I did grab a bit of grape and I said, can I figure out how to see if I could do this?
Yeah.
And my mom said to me, you know, if you are not excited to play around and figure out how to do the wine, make wine on your own, then I'm going to be worried, because you should be excited.
Right.
So I made a barrel of wine for kind of every year. I've missed one vintage. And the idea of that was to do my own label, make the wine, look after it, go to market with it as well, learn that, because you do have to have a thick skin selling wine. It's winemaking and farming is this much, but it's this much. The marketing and selling wine is a lot. So doing that whole process and coming home being like, I'm still got to do this.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So I have made a different varietal every year.
Cool.
Something that we don't have in our wines, so that I can learn about that. So I did a Cinsault, which was really fun. I was pretty proud of that. And then I did make a Chenin, which we do, but that was fun for me.
Yeah.
And Chenin, Mourvedre. I traveled to Piedmont and I was really excited about how they're not putting Nebbiolo and oak, and I was like, are you sure? Am I hearing this right? Because my mind was like, back then red wine was going a barrel, or at least an old barrel. So all I could get was Mourvedre, and that's what I played with. I would say it wasn't the best wine I've ever made. Okay. Opening it now, I'm like, oh, it's actually pretty good. Maybe I needed to realize that it must be released later.
Sure.
And then this year my dad does make me laugh. I said to him, I'm going to make a rosé. And he was like, why would you do that?
That's so funny.
And I was like, well, I don't know. It just came to me in a dream. I don't know why.
That's so funny.
My mom was like, you should definitely do that. So then I went and got the grapes, and he saw me running up and down with all these ideas. And he's like, why don't you do this? And I'm like, no. You did not want to be involved in this.
All of a sudden he wants to participate.
Now he wants to make a rosé. So yeah, making the rosé was pretty fun. I did so many things, like different pressings, different skin times. Cool. Because we don't make rosé anymore, I mean, at all, just one barrel when I top now, like mixing white and red. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that's been fun. I've managed to get the color perfect. So far, I'm pretty happy. I wanted to play with a skin contact Riesling, so that might be in the future. And then, I don't know if there's a picture in that book, but my dad and I do these fun labels where we had Stand By Me, and it's a picture of us. Actually, the picture is in the book. Stand By Me, and we being serious next to each other, and that was a Grenache that we made. And then we have Back to Back, which is actually also in there. So we have that photo back to back in the...
I'm not sure if people will be able to see it, but...
So we have Back to Back Cab, and I've been with Bernard from Signs of Sinai, and it's been amazing. He was brought out a Cab Sav, and for, I would say, early days of making wine with my dad, I said to him, why aren't we making single cab? It's so beautiful, it's so different to the warmer regions. It's super elegant. And 2 years ago, he did make a cab, and we made it a back-to-back cab because we blended 2 barrels together.
Cool.
So that was really fun. So and then 3 years ago, I overfilled the tank. It was really hot and I just wanted to go home. I overfilled the tank twice, not just once. So we had to pull juice from the bottom of the tank and fill a barrel. And it was on the skins for maybe a day. So in our sense, it's our rosé, because if you taste our red wines, there's quite a bit of extraction on them. So that was the first time we made a rosé, and put it in barrel, forgot about it, and we were tasting through, and super reductive. But I'm not scared of reductiveness. I think but tasted, and I was like, oh my word, let's make a pool wine. So we made a Cool by the Pool.
That's
That
awesome.
was fun.
Yeah.
That was the one where everyone's like, I want Cool by the Pool. And it was like a shitty looking label, but this bottle, and that was fun, I think.
And just a total disaster of a winemaking process.
Yeah, but a good wine.
Yeah,
I really enjoy that wine. And let's see what happens this year, 2025. I don't know if there's something. It's kind of the wines where something goes wrong, but then it ends up being a beautiful wine. We'll see. So might have a fun label. And then that's always sold out the tasting room. Sometimes if someone really wants it to be our guy that imports our wine in Germany, sometimes gets a few cases of these fun wines.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. Otherwise, the blends have stayed the same varietals. The percentages change. We planted our own Grenache in 2017. So that's adding to the Saboteur Red. And then the Saboteur White. Just by chance, I made Semillon for another winemaker, and he didn't want all of it. So I said, well, if it works, we'll take it. So 2024 Saboteur White has 2% Semillon in it.
That's cool.
And 2015 has a bit of Chardonnay in it. But besides 24 and 2015, it's been Chenin Viognier, Sauvignon Blanc. So,
That's awesome. And the name Saboteur was decided as...
So I'll give people an idea of the Luddite. So we want it to be Luddite because we want it to be hands-on, minimal intervention, good grapes, good barrels, good wine. And the Luddites were against technology. So we were, one of the other reasons for being Luddite is we want to employ people as well. I think everyone, for me, I'm like, there's robots around and that's creepy. So we're Luddite. And then Saboteur, when the revolution moved to France, they used to take the wooden shoes clogs, and they were called sabogs. So sabog, Saboteur, and they would take those wooden shoes and jam them in the machines to break them.
Wow.
And that was, so in the rebel theme of breaking
That's
things.
awesome. I love that.
I've been asked if I'm destroying Teslas here. I'm like, no, I'm not. Thank
Just
you.
Waymos, that's all. Just the Waymos.
Yeah, the Waymos freak me out a lot. I don't want to go near one.
That's funny. Yeah, I saw Bernard went in one. Peter posted a video of him going home in one, and I was kind of in my brain. I was thinking, would it let I get in Waymo?
Oh, my parents went in one last year.
Oh, really? That's so funny.
I've got a video of them.
That's so funny.
Oh my God, it is going. What's happening? So I said to Peter, I'm not going in a Waymo. Are you joking? I think I saw one glitching the other day. It was like going in circles.
They get a little glitchy sometimes. Yeah.
No, I'm okay.
Massimo Furlan, one of our winemakers from Friuli, he came out and he really wanted to do it, and I hadn't done it. I've lived here, since 2018. And I was like, okay, you can do it. He was like, are you going to do it? And I was like, I guess I better,
Yeah.
And then I tried it once, and I do it a few titimes now here and there because I look at Uber, Lyft, and Waymo, and sometimes Waymo's cheaper. I go Waymo it is, and also you don't have to tip. Not that I'm trying to get away from tipping, but it was just like business expensing. But
after my fun experience, the Lyft today, I might Waymo.
Yeah, there you go.
Get over
well,
it.
At least it'll close its own trunk.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really important part, right? Is that you want to employ people, and I think in a society of like ever evolving convenience and automation. That's something that's kind of getting lost along the way. So while you're not destroying Teslas or Waymos here, wink, wink, everybody. I think that's something that we shouldn't lose is also the human aspect of it. Yes, a machine can replace 3 employees, but what happens to those 3 employees?
Yeah. It is scary. I mean, I did this talk at, I don't know what it was called. I always use the word conference, but it was not a conference. A lot of people in a room, and I had to talk about wine. And
it's kind of like a conference.
Yeah, my dad snuck in the back. And as he snuck in, I was saying, we make our wine with love. And after the talk, he came up to me. I was like, that was weird. And I said, why? He's like, what do you mean we make wine with love? I'm like, well, we do. And now I'm always like, why? So he made me feel like an idiot for saying that. And now we joke about it.
Yeah.
But that is an aspect. For me, you can taste if a wine is made without humans involved, like so much machinery. And a really good compliment a friend gave to me, he said, I know it's your wines because there's a certain energy in it. And I think you definitely taste when a wine is not farmed well, not made well. And yeah, for me as a winemaker, I never want to not be involved in all the processes. I think it's crazy if you're not in the cellar and literally hands-on with the wine. So, yeah.
Yeah, the other day I went to a store and I bought a bottle off a shelf. It was $15. And I'd been seeing all this stuff online about how they like rebranded. It's like new packaging, very exciting, but a larger producer, which I'll tell you afterwards. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it, I'll try it. It's a $15 bottle of wine. I need to know what other people are drinking as well, right? So I got it and I tried it and I was like, I mean, it was good, but it didn't have energy. You know, it didn't have like a heartbeat. It was just like very much like check the box of what you would expect in a Chardonnay. You know, check.
And I know it sounds weird, like saying there's no love in the wine, but I'm sorry, you can taste it.
You can taste it.
Maybe I was finding a friendlier word, but for me, it's so true. You can, same as anything. You can see when there's been love put in it. It's like food, when food's been made with love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I love McDonald's from time to time, but
Yeah, we all do. My brother-in-law has this thing when we travel. He's like, I have to try McDonald's in a new city. So I'm like, okay, I get it.
That's funny. Yeah, I know. When my wife went to Japan a year ago, 2 years ago, her siblings were very much like, we have to get the special items that are only available in Japan. And she's like, why? And, but I mean, to each their own, right? We would go and just go to any wine bar that there was and just want to taste stuff, So we all have our passions, I guess, in some ways or another. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed on these bottles, at first I was like, oh, is it a pet nat? It's not. You're using crown caps for your bottles, and I was curious if you could maybe touch on that, whether it's a sustainability factor or, is there a reason that you're choosing to use crown caps on your bottles?
I want my first answer to be sustainability, which is something very important to me, but it's not. The crown cap was chosen because we said if you call the wine Saboteur, you can do whatever you want.
Sure.
So it's kind of to be fun and trendy. And if it's good enough for champagne, it's good enough for us. That's also the joke. Yeah. Definitely fooling the beer drinkers.
Yeah.
But it's a nice conversation starter, and I think people are worried that the wine won't age. There's actually less breathability than a cork, so it ages beautifully. The red wine, we have 10 years of evidence so far of that.
That's cool.
But like most people know, the crown cap's been around for a long time. But yeah, on sustainability, I was chatting to Peter about the other day, it's it's a worry or concern of mine, the packaging waste in the wine industry, and to change that is so tricky because people will, if you take away the capsule or you use what's the cork, everyone's using bamboo cork, a lot of your followers will be like, oh, now it's cheap, or why we can't buy that wine, it's not fancy anymore. And it's like, the wine is still amazing, it's still the same, we're just changing the packaging for a certain reason. For me, the concern is the waste we have in the world. So it's kind of a hard fight, but I would say having the crown cap definitely takes away from no capsule, that sort of thing. I for me at home, I try and reuse all our boxes, our stickers, reuse as much as I can. I've also reused our bottles. I know some people think that's not great, but I found someone close to us, so I send the bottles in, they wash it, bring it back, and so far no problems. If you have a bottle of Saboteur and you feel like the bottle wasn't clean, please let me know. But I think I've been doing it enough now to know it's sound. But I would love to go no capsules, that stuff. But the main guy is like, no ways. I'm not selling a Shiraz at that price without a capsule. So you can see he's still fighting the traditionalists, which I completely understand it, but I would love there to be more of a movement to get away from such XX packaging on wine, because you don't even see it. A lot of the time the Somms will take the whole capsule off. Yeah. So
yeah, or at a wine bar, I mean, you just pull the whole capsule off and throw it in the trash. You don't.
I remember last year in Sicily, I didn't have an opener, so I started pulling the capsule off, and the Italian next to me was like, well, you're killing me. I'm like, I'm so sorry. So I put the capsule back on, and I was like, you want to take it off again?
Yeah, that's so funny.
And I completely get it, and I love the special moment in that, but I'm also like, can you not see the other side as well?
Right, yeah. So. Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like, I had somebody say this to me, it was like maybe a decade ago, and it was about the romanticism of a cork, right? And again, I can completely understand, right? But yeah, I think something that we talk about a lot is kind of conscious consumption and like understanding like what you're eating, what you're drinking, where it comes from, and kind of the implications that go along with that. And I think that is something that, you know, while it is maybe a little more punk rock to put a bottle cap on it, you know, it is sustainable, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important. On a more fun question, have you ever had anybody duct tape these to their hands and play Edward 40 hands with them?
No, but
Do you know
no. No, but
I think that'd be a good.
now.
I think that'd be a good marketing opportunity. You know, I guess not 40 ounces, but you know,
you stuff them to your hands and you.
yeah. You take 2 40 ounces, you tape them to your hand, and then you have to finish them before you can take them off.
I didn't go to university, but I have friends who did go.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
used to strap something called autumn harvest, and
Oh, that's
it's
funny.
like. It's the worst alcohol you can imagine. I don't know how you're alive, and they duct tape it to their hands, and it's like 1.5 liters.
Yeah.
And you also got to finish it. So I've had this running joke being like, I never experienced this, so we got to strap autumn harvest to me so I can do that as
That's so
well. But
funny.
now I'm like, it's way too late. I'm not doing that. But
could
I'll
do
do
it
it
with
with
wine.
I'll do it with this
Yeah,
wine.
yeah.
We always joke and say, if you drink a bottle of this, you should feel much better.
Right,
So
that's funny.
I'll do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Yeah, well, it was specifically about tricking the beer drinkers that made me think about it. And then I was looking at the front. It reminds me of like, obviously the label looks a lot nicer than this. So by no means is this a slight to the label, but it reminds me of some of the beers, like some of the malt liquors that you would get, you know, the label, the name would run up the side. It'd be in blue letters. Well, yeah, that's cool. That's funny. Okay, so we also have here the book. Is the book available for people to get? Is this kind of a marketing opportunity, or?
If you want a book, I'm happy to give you one.
Sure.
But we kind of, we made them to take with us to tastings.
That's cool.
Like Hello Shannon, it's so busy and you can't talk to someone, then the book's on the table and they can get an idea of the farm. So just some fun photos of us and making wine and doing cool things.
And then this is your dad.
Yeah.
But
And that's not a tattoo.
Okay, that was one of the questions. I mean, it
stamp.
looks a little bit more like a stamp, but tattoo
Yeah, it is a stamp.
tattoo would have been pretty metal. I mean, it's
No, he gets it a lot after bringing that picture up there. So
that's funny. They go, did you
he's
remove
gotta
it?
do it.
That's funny. And so I guess while we're on the topic of the Saboteur versus the Luddite wines specifically, I know that Saboteur is designed to be kind of a little bit more fun and friendly and, you know, not anarchist, but in a way kind of like a little bit more rebellious in that nature. What's the difference in the winemaking between these and the Luddite wines, besides maybe the blend of the grapes?
Yeah, I think it's good that I kind of touch on the wine. So the Saboteur is by no means a second label. We put as much effort into it and make it just a different style, I guess. So the Shiraz and Chenin under cork for the romantics, how you say it.
Yeah.
I completely agree with. I like pulling a cork out of the Luddite. That is estate fruit. Shiraz is mostly clay and broken down shale. The Chenin is more sandy, loamier soils. And then Shiraz we age for 4 years, so 2 years in barrel, 2 years in bottle. And generally kind of subtle licorice, cloves, spice. On cooler vintages, a lot more floral elegance. Feinbos coming through. Feinbos is like your chaparral. I've nailed that one. And then the Chenin, something we get in the Chenins in our valley is that really nice salinity thread coming through. We also want all our wines to be healthy ferments, so they ferment really dry. I think with the whites and reds, the blends and that, for me, I'm happy to have fruit sweetness, but I want the wine to ferment dry, the lowest RS possible. I think that leaves your palate refreshed, and then you want more, and that's the whole idea. We want you to finish the bottle. So the Saboteur, and then the Chenin, we generally do about 21 days of skin contact. So a lot more, the Luddite range is maybe a little bit more serious. Then the Saboteur, the white blend, is a little bit of skin contact on the Chenin and Viognier. It gives it a little bit of tannin, pithiness, some nice texture. The Viognier we pick a lot later, so we want a bit of sweet fruit, floral, peachy, maybe apricot characteristics coming out. And then the Sauvignon Blanc is not really picked for varietal characteristics. We pick it for an acidity adjuster, so that's just to freshen up the wine. Where the 100% Chenin, we're getting that freshness already from, we're picking it on flavor, and that flavor is pretty low alcohol, so we get some nice acidity. And then the Saboteur, we also wanted to have nice spice, nice juicy fruit, and be in balance. That's also important, and that's less aging. So 1 year barrel, 1 year bottle. The Saboteur also started because you eventually needed to buy new barrels, and we didn't want to put our Shiraz in new oak. So had some new barrels eventually and had Shiraz in it, and thought, oh, this is actually quite fun. So that's kind of where the Saboteur Red started. And then planting Grenache, and there's been differences. I've started doing different skin times, doing a tank fermentation portion on cooler, just to have more fruitier side to the Saboteur. The red, I did go through when the trend of picking earlier started. I do remember saying to my dad, can I do that? Can we make the wine in a lighter style? And he said, yes, if that's what you want to do. And then I opened it 2014 and phoned him back, and I was like, I'm wrong. I'm so wrong. And he's actually amazing how calm he is. I think I need someone like that to work with. And he was like, you don't follow trends. We're going to make the wine we make and have our followers. And that's really important, I think. So sticking to that style of wine. And I also love when you can open a 10-year-old Shiraz or the Saboteur Red blend and it's still singing. So that's also, maybe change it a little bit, but come back to how it's meant to be. And I think from 2019, adding Grenaches, that's kind of changed it a lot, but still having more riper, juicy fruit spice coming through in the Saboteur Red. Yeah.
And you maybe said it, but maybe I missed it. When you're picking, are you trying to pick right around the same time? Are you storing the fruit? I mean,
no.
It's not like a block fermentation or anything like that.
I thought about doing a co-fermentation, and then it just didn't happen. But for the blend, I want all the wines to be aged individually, show their characteristic on their own.
That makes sense.
So the Chenin is a portion in tank, cold fermented, a portion on skins for 10 days, and a portion on skins for like 2-3 days. Then the skin portions are pressed into barrel. Some of it will do a little bit of its fermentation in the barrel, and some of it like a day or two. When you press the grapes, a little bit of sugar is always released. The Sauvignon Blanc is always picked very early, like 20 bulling, which is maybe an alcohol, let's say 11 and a half. I might be wrong here. I don't have my calculator. So that's a whole bunch pressed and fermented in barrel. And then the Viognier, we always do a little bit of skin contact and then pressed into barrel and batonnaged once a month. And our press is quite big, so there's been years where I've pressed Viognier and Chenin on each other, so you can say it's like a co-pressing situation. And the Shiraz, and then this Shiraz has always been in tank with pump overs. Mourvèdre and Grenache portion has been open bin fermenters with punch downs and a tank portion. And then cab, we've never had. Well, this year we didn't have a lot of cabs, so it's been open bin fermenters, and then aged separately. And once it's had a year in barrel, we take it out and blend it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of getting the best of the best out of each grape individually and then assemblage afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually worked with a field blend twice now, and it is really cool to do that. But I think you're going to drive yourself mad if you do so many things. So we just treat it separately, but I'm glad I have the opportunity to make a field blend wine for someone else. It's been fun to see how the grapes actually work really nicely together.
Yeah, each piece kind of building into a whole, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the ones that comes to mind immediately is like Craig Harmeyer, obviously, was at Helle Chenin Fest. He has a wine that he makes, Victor Weiser, and it's like the Macalumna Glen Vineyard. It's 52 different varieties. And I asked him one time, like, do you pick them all at once? And he goes, you have to.
Yeah, no,
it's mostly like, I think it's mostly Chenin and like Gruner. So he waits till those get to the ripest, and then you pick all of them at once. It's a bunch of different, like, interesting, like, Austrian varieties and stuff like that. Cool. So, it's cool.
Yeah, the grape varietals will balance each other out. The guy I was working with wants to pick it separate, and I'm like, you have to acknowledge that it's a field blend, or don't have a field blend.
Right.
Because that's how field blend works. So this guy's having a hard time. I'm like, accept it. It's really cool.
It is cool. I mean, if that's what you're doing, do it.
Can you imagine picking like one vine, walking down the row, finding another Grenache vine? Like, why would you do that?
No. And I'm curious too, were there vineyards when you guys moved there, or did you plant everything yourselves?
Yeah, when we moved it was bare land.
Wow.
So cleared the farm and planted the vineyards. My parents did it on their own, Well, with a team, not just the two of them, but my mum basically planted the vines. And started, just Shiraz, a little bit of Mourvèdre and Cab, and then 2012 planted our Chenin. And then 2017, I think, was some more Chenin and Grenache.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool for me to be able to sit here and share this story with you and understand more about the region and obviously, your family's, involvement in what you guys are doing. So again, very appreciative for you walking me through that journey.
Yeah.
We touched on this a little bit earlier and it sounds like not that your dad's hands off, but he's kind of open for you doing the experimenting and kind of doing whatever you want to do. So the winemaking transition between the wines, maybe over the last, somebody that's been having the wines for, let's say, 10 years, is there a little bit of a thread that's similar in many ways? Or like you said, there's a little bit of a departure here and there? Or you feel like the core of the winemaking is still very similar?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one. I guess that's a question you have to ask what someone who's been drinking a wine over the years.
Yeah.
I think one of the things is you've been farming those grapes for a long time, working with them. You start knowing your land a lot more. So I think the wine's always going to start getting better and better as you know them. So it's maybe. And one of the things my dad says is it's great that I ask so many questions. It makes him rethink.
Yeah.
So in a way, I would say a lot of people say the wines are pretty focused. And maybe the Shiraz is a little bit less extraction, but for me, I don't think there's a major change. The Chenin 23, there was a bit of flaw on the vintage, which has never happened before, and we've actually went and bottled it, and pretty happy. I think it's a very cool wine. 2024, I pushed on the skin contact to make it a month, and there was some hesitance on one side, and the 24 is beautiful, so
That's
pretty
cool.
happy on that. So maybe those little changes.
Sure.
But I would say the wines are tasting really good then, and I think they're tasting really good now. There's definitely a joke that he gets that there's a feminine touch, and that's why I say you just have more time and you know your land more.
Sure,
So
yeah.
maybe we can say that.
Yeah.
What does a feminine touch really mean? So
That's funny. I've never met your father, so again, not a slight to him. I've always said that I love female winemakers because it's more palate, less pride.
yes, I've heard that.
it's very much about what's the best for the wine, right?
And that is funny. We do well. Actually, next time I should say that comment if I hear we having a little fight about something that.
No. As long as you don't link it back to me,
He would love that.
That's
so
funny.
He'll take that well, so I'll use it.
One of the other things that I was interested in is because you guys planted everything from the beginning. I was lucky to be there for the conversation between Tegan and Bernard from Sinai and Sandlands and Turley. And one of the things that they were talking about was like dry farming Chenin.
Yeah.
Is that something you guys are doing as well? Obviously, it's probably impossible to do at the very beginning because you got to get the grapes some life.
I was chatting about it earlier about the trends and how people are like, oh, I'm dryland farming, but I was thinking it's because of social media. You are the first to dryland farming. There's guys who've been doing that for a long time.
Spain, everything is done like that, yeah.
So my parents did make the call to be dryland farming from day one.
Awesome.
So dryland farmed on our Shiraz, but it is clay soil, so holds water better.
Yeah.
Back with the Romanticism, we didn't know there was going to be a drought. We had 5 years of drought, and that was kind of a struggle. So very little yield. You can see it in, unfortunately, I don't have a Shiraz here. We went from like 10,000 to 4,000 bottles.
Jesus.
So that's crazy,
Yeah.
So I don't want to irrigate, but what we've done is we've put in irrigation on one of the blocks so that if another 5-year drought happens, there's okay.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, we've done composting cover crops and that helps a little bit. But what I've done now is we've planted some more Shiraz and we've taken a little, ripped the soil to 40 centimeters because clay, it's really hard. And that's kind of just when it rains, going to let some water in. So those vines that have been there for 30 years with hardly any water are going to, I think, get excited, which will be really cool to see. But one of the things is dryland farming, we've never had a disease down there. Really, we've planted the row direction so the wind's blowing nicely through. And we get that cooling influence from the ocean, and we've planted for morning sun as well. So we've done all the things we can to accommodate the vines. And then the Chenin is on sandier soils. So this is just my opinion, I might be wrong, but I don't think that soil type really would suit dryland farming, especially when we planted it pretty close to a drought happening.
Sure.
So we've got irrigation in there, and we will only use it if there's no rain. So now we've got some nice rainfall, and we've when I left, we started putting cover crop in, which is pretty exciting. And we'll just kind of judge what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're always praying for rain. That's farming.
Take it a day at a
praying
time.
for rain, and when the rain comes, like, rain book. How much did we get?
Yeah.
At the end of the year, you like calculate it. So in the drought years, we're on 300 mils for the year, which is nothing. And on a rainy year, I wish I could equate that to, I don't know, I'm like trying to do it's not a lot.
No.
And then we went to 800 mils on a wetter year, which also not, it's good, but if we could get to 1,000, that would be greater. Yeah, and we're putting Japanese radish in our Shiraz as well, just to kind of break the soil a little bit.
Cool. Yeah.
So all the things you've got to do to kind of help. But yeah, I am pro dryland farming, and the decision was because we want every vintage to be different. My dad always said to me, if we want every vintage to be the same, he's going to quit and make Coca-Cola. So
that's funny.
Okay, we're not going to do that.
If you're getting 4 tons an acre, that.
I mean, we're sitting at 1.5 ton a hectare.
Right.
What is a hectare? You have to go to research.
1.5 ton a hectare.
It's tiny, yes.
Oh my God.
And 3 tons on our Shannon.
Wow.
So a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's about 2 hectares.
Yeah.
But so definitely need more grapes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's something that's fascinating, about dry farming is that I think you hit the nail on the head. Some people are dry farming because it's just another box to check at this point, right? But doing it and understanding why you're doing it, I think, is a little bit different, right? And knowing when and where to do it is also good. Instead of dry farming on the sand and grapes dying and you having to replant everything, it's not really an option.
I get fruit from a place called Grayton. It's for contract winemaking, and they irrigate like crazy. And we always say, guys, just don't. It's going to be fine. You get good rain there. So you get these huge berries, and when you make the wine, and I should have the photos. I've got the grapes where they irrigate, and we've got our grapes, and right from picking, it's this dark, beautiful juice, and theirs is just a slight salmony pink.
Wow.
So when you're making the wine with the Shiraz, you get that intensity, that fruit concentration, that lovely fine tannin. With the grapes that are irrigated, it's like super light strawberry, hardly any tannin. So then it could be a stylistic thing. So I know for that wine, I'm like, it's Shiraz, but in my mind, it's Pinot Noir. So just because it's been so overly irrigated.
Right, yeah. At this point, the skin is thin because it's been expanded so much. Yeah,
it's a huge berry. It's like table grapes in a way.
This is just something that came to my mind because I thought that it was interesting. I remember working at Glazers back in the day, and then Southern Glazers after the merger. And I remember we used to sell like sparkling Shiraz. Is that a thing? Does anybody do that anymore? Is that...
Yes, and someone in Peter's portfolio does.
Wow,
it.
really?
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
I didn't realize that. Wait, but it's a red sparkling wine. I didn't know that.
Shiraz.
That's so funny.
If I'm wrong, then oh my goodness. Sorry.
No.
I hope I'm right. No, because you're my neighbor.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh.
So I know in Australia they do it.
Yeah.
Melissa Genevieve.
Okay.
So you got to get a bottle from Peter. She's down the road from me, like 7 Ks. And it's her 3rd vintage, I think, making it. So the first one was a little bit dark and maybe on the sweeter style, but now I think she's nailed it. It's a beautiful sparkling wine. So
that's really cool. Yeah, I would assume that you have to like pick significantly early.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that, dry farming is also very important there because you're looking for as much tenseness as you can get in something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if she's dryland farming, but the fruit is from her little farm, and she's doing Chardonnay and then the Shiraz sparkling wine.
That's cool. That's the future. Yeah. Sparkling Shiraz wine, skin contact Rieslings,
I don't know if I'm going to do that. It's all the ideas.
Do it.
Pop in your head. But
that's funny. One of the other things that I don't know, I really loved when I was kind of looking things up. Specifically in regards to Luddite, a person opposed to new technology and ways of working. In a way, I like it, but also you guys are still really open-minded to things, and you're going out there and experiencing what's going on in the wine industry and across the world. Do you still feel like a Luddite in some ways, or do you feel like you're kind of on the fence a little bit more?
No, I think sometimes I go to these very fancy cellars and I'm like, this would be amazing.
Yeah.
I've got a drain that like tips in, not out.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I sometimes stand there, I'm like, this would be fun
Yeah,
if it
yeah.
worked, or if everything was tiled, or
Sure.
just all the funny things. But no, it's like a home. You come home to the cellar and I love how it is.
Yeah.
I've definitely gone to cellars and such basic things, like we used to leave all our pipes on the floor, and I won just like maybe 8 years ago, probably one of the first harvests, and I came back and said, let's hang everything on the wall. It looks so beautiful.
Yeah.
And my dad tripped on the pipes, and then I was like, see, let's do it. So that's a little change I've done. I'm a big whiteboard person, so I'll sell us full of whiteboards, like the on-the-spot whiteboard, the tomorrow whiteboard, just like ideas. But yeah, no, and I once saw a forklift that, I know not, this sounds very Luddite, or back in time, I saw a forklift that tips the bins.
Wow.
And then I was like, you can do that?
Yeah.
And here we are, like holding a bin in the air and scooping out grapes.
Yeah.
And that's the answer was, well, we can do that, but then you must tell everyone that they don't have jobs anymore. And I was like, okay, no, we don't need that.
Yeah.
So, and I think secretly my dad's like, it's when he gets really fit, it's harvest time. So he likes the physical exercise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen fancy cellars or ways to do it. And it just, I think you also lose your the hands-on side of it. So no, I have no desire to change. I want to go even backwards. So.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
More Luddite.
Well, that's hilarious. Yeah, and I mean, it's almost like you guys are taking the path of most resistance, right? Because you have such low yields, and you're harvesting and in hand harvesting, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And you're not using the forklifts that dump bins and.
But we do have a press. I'm not going to sound like we're completely crazy. We do have a press. It is broken, so we've had to drill a hole in the side, and you climb yourself inside the press and do the levers.
So
it's going to
funny.
be a very teary day when we get a new press, which we are trying to do. But that, and we have a crusher, which also doesn't really work, so it's just splits the berry. And we do use a pump, so we do have technology,
Sure.
but yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Thank God.
yeah.
Otherwise, your production would be even smaller.
Yeah, it would be crazy. So not completely anti it, but yeah, in most side of the winemaking, be handcrafted. So.
In regards to production, I mean, how many cases are you guys making in a year across the wines?
This is the other question where I've got to do the maths. I want to say
You can do bottles or whatever.
Around 40,000 bottles. So it's always dependent on the vintage. The Chenin has been, I mean, we've gone to, market with 300 bottles of Chenin, which is nothing. And
Nothing.
we would like to be 4,000. Right now, we're sitting around 2,000 bottles of our Chenin. The Shiraz, the next vintage is going to be 4,000, which is crazy. We should be 10,000. So it varies from there. And then the Saboteurs, because we buy in fruit, we can decide, and they're around 15,000 bottles each. So let's say around 40 in total.
Right.
That's a very rough number, but it's as accurate as I can go quickly.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's so roughly 3,600 cases
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah, because yours are 12. We do 6-packs. That's why I'm like,
Oh yeah, that's tough. I know. With 9-liter packs now.
Yeah. With transporting wine, the 12-bottle pack is much nicer.
Sure,
But you're going to tell South Africans to change.
I'm not gonna tell anybody to do anything.
Yeah, me neither.
That's funny. I wanted to touch on Helle Chenin, and it was the first Helle Chenin. I know that you guys were doing all kinds of events before and all kinds of events after, but to focus in exclusively on Helle Chenin, how cool of an event was that? I mean, obviously, I'm sure that there was like plenty of things to learn, plenty of things to do differently, right? It's a first event, right? But on the outside looking in, it was a really cool event, and it was just really amazing to see this community and this like wonderful networking of winemakers and industry professionals getting in and focusing on like a grape specifically, like Chenin Blanc. So I guess I said how I feel about it, but how did you feel about it?
I was going to say, you nailed it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I was chatting to Peter the one day about, I think we were kind of talking about what could do differently, and I was thinking, I think my one silly comment was like, you guys didn't have to feed us because we're so busy. You could save money on that. I'm like, actually nothing. For me, no complaints. I don't know what on their side what went wrong, but from my side, it looked really well organized, amazing. even at 4:30, I still did a tasting for someone who was pretty switched on and excited about wine. So that was great. So well organized, and just the keenness to learn about Shannon, and that talk with Tegan and Bernard. Like, I learned some stuff there,
Cool.
Which was great. I mean, I've taken notes to go and do my own little research. So yeah, a good day. I think I should definitely do it again.
Yeah.
And people have said maybe could have more people. I kind of disagree. I think it was really awesome to be able to talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And I did get the opportunity to taste, and it was really nice to see. It's definitely a difference, but it's quite cool to see that Shannon celebrated here and in South Africa. So yeah, it was a great day.
I think that ties in really well to my next question, which was, of the other Chenin Blancs that you got to taste, was there anything that stood out to you? I mean, obviously, I'm sure that South Africa, maybe the South African wines were a little bit more familiar. But, was there anything else that you tasted that you were like really excited about, or you thought was like a really like kind of, I don't know, very unique kind of representation of the grape?
I mean, I'm going to back myself and say I think our Shannons were great.
Yeah,
Why would I not say that? I actually thought the Californian Shannons would be a lot sweeter. So there were a few that had a lot of fruit sweetness, but there were some that had that little bit of a salinity line. I enjoyed Pax's Shannon. Tegan brought out a 2014.
That 14
so you taste this
ripping.
Those ones are kind of in the style that I'm used to. I like that fresh salinity, no oakiness coming through, but they're still palate weight, and it's not a big wine. And Tegan, who was the other one? I tasted someone else's that I really liked. Maitre de Chai. Yeah, that one. Yeah. I feel like there's a clown on the label.
It's like there's a bunch of stuff on the label. Their
sparkling one was pretty cool. And Martha Sturman, I don't think it was 100% Shannon, but I enjoyed her wine a lot. Yeah. So those three were pretty cool. It sounds like I didn't taste enough. But of the ones I tasted, I should have tasted more, but I really enjoyed those three.
Yeah.
To Fine Disregard. I actually went to the historic vine tasting at the Fort Mason.
Yeah.
So I got to taste that again, and
that's cool.
really good. And he gave me like a half bottle with a cork in that traveled through the city on Saturday night and made it home on Sunday for dinner. And it was tasting really good, especially that it's been rolling around the city. But so that might have been one of my favorite ones.
That's cool. I thought it was great. I mean, in a way, I think it was a perfect unison between like familiarity and non-familiarity, right?
Yeah.
Because when it comes to South African Chenin Blanc, I've had a few, right? But like, it's really easy to kind of like homogenize the style in your brain and go like, I know what South African Chenin Blanc tastes like. And so getting to taste all of the South African producers differently was really interesting.
Yeah.
Having a producer like Luddite there, it's like, those wines aren't available in wholesale. So all the Somms that were there were like, it was super excited because you never get to taste that wine unless you go to the winery. And then equally so, there's so many wines like Hammerling, I never tasted any of the Hammerling wines.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would look at them and I would go like, oh, they're natural wines, and not that I don't like natural wines, but just like, it's not a style I generally gravitate towards because I don't feel like I have the familiarity enough with the producers to say like, that's a safe bet for me. If I'm going to buy a bottle of wine, I'm going to make sure I enjoy it. Right.
Yeah,
so,
makes sense.
so it was really fantastic, even as a seasoned professional, to be able to taste through everything that I got to taste through, because I mean, it's just,
I would like to see more South Africans come out.
Yeah.
Was also saying maybe you should do it in South Africa, Shannon.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually a good idea. Maybe we keep it here, but it is a fun idea. Could do the Shiraz one.
Yeah.
We should do, or Shiraz, because some people say Syrah, we say Shiraz.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we do that little one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it'd be cool. And I mean, also too, you guys came at kind of a really good point because your harvest is ended.
Yeah.
Bud break is starting, so you're in this kind of like really interesting overlap where there's a little bit of time. People have a little bit of time to do something like that. So
yeah, that's true. It was a good time to do it.
And not that I want to put more on your plate, but it would also be cool to do like a multi-city thing, like LA or something like that, or New York
Take
or
Helm
something.
Shannon on tour.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
That'd be sick. Yeah, it'd be the next trip you carry.
Yeah.
But be
that'd
careful
cool.
because those guys are tired. I know all those guys are so tired.
Yeah,
by the end of it.
that'd be so fun. Major, like all the major cities, Helm Shannon tour.
Yeah.
That's actually something that we should tell Peter to
I'm
do.
sure Peter doesn't have enough on his plate. Let's just add this for
You
him.
can run that one for
Yeah.
him.
Any big kind of inspirations in your life? I know that you've kind of worked around the world and you've done harvests at all these other places and beyond harvest. I mean, you've done punch downs in San Emilion and is there anybody out there that stands out, obviously besides your family, of like somebody that changed your perspective or changed your mentality of things that you maybe want to like give a little shout out to?
Sure. Oh no, I don't know how to answer this one. I feel like
you can only pick one.
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know how to. I feel like I've been lucky enough to grow up with a lot of mentors.
That's awesome.
And I could just name a lot of names.
So cool.
I want to say everyone, actually.
That's
everyone
great.
in the wine industry that have had good and bad. I'll say there's some people that have not been great. And even them they have taught me something.
You learn things, yeah.
Yeah, so not one specific person. I think we all fighting the same fight. Everyone's doing something exciting, and whether I agree with it or not, I'm going to learn something. And for most part, most people in the wine industry worldwide are super friendly and welcoming, and was kind of my start of I want to do this, and I want to do it in a way that's not pretentious. I want someone to drink wine because they enjoy it, not to be scared of it. And I think along my journey I've had enough people to stay in that ethos with me.
That's perfect. I think that's beautiful. These wines are really cool. So do you want a little red?
Yeah,
Ready
sure.
for red? So you said that the red is Grenache, Cab Sauv, Mourvèdre, and Shiraz.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. When you are seeing success for these wines, I guess, throughout the marketplace, do these wines perform well in like retail settings? Do they perform well in kind of like wine bar settings? I mean, when you do something like this and you're putting a crown cap on something and you're kind of playing in a little bit more of this, again, you're not selecting just like the easiest path, right? Because in a way, like the more traditional restaurants are going to be like, well, I don't know if I can pour this,
You're going to hate my answer to one of that. So the Saboteur will always be crown cap. I think it suits that and it's fun. And that by the glass at wine bars is phenomenal.
Prussian.
I think the the Saboteur White has that component to be food friendly, but it also has a juicy fruit, nice freshness to be for the general man in the street. So I think that wine goes for me everywhere, but it's most popular by the glass, and especially in Cape Town there's a lot of restaurants that are serving it, which is really cool. And then the Saboteur Red, we have decided to go to cork with it, so we go 60-40, so we were doing 40% crown, 60% cork.
Okay.
And logistically it's just been a bit tricky, and then going on, people don't want a crown cap on red wine.
Sure.
And it's, at the end of the day, we need to make money. So we're talking about all passion, which it is that, but we're going to make money. So the crown cap's not that well received with the Saboteur Red. And I say this and people are going to be like, you're wrong, we all love it. And I'm like, well then,
buy more.
Speak louder. But the Saboteur Red is for me pretty popular. In Germany it's sold a lot. But the price point, I think, depending on which country, I know in South Africa, price point is not so popular by the glass, but by bottle at restaurants and retail, it does well.
That's cool. Yeah.
I mean, even today, I think it's tasting really good.
It's so good. It's very pretty.
The
It's very
wine's
aromatic.
like America. They've traveled well. I say to Peter every day, I'm like, oh, it's good. Oh, it's really good.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, I was thinking about places for this, and I'm thinking about like the stores near the parks and stuff, where you can just grab this, pop the cork, take the crown cap off, and pour yourself a couple glasses at the park or something like that.
I know we, I don't know how to say this word, what this would be in like here, but we say scully, which is kind of like a naughty kid.
Oh yeah.
So say you like a proper scully with this, and you take a lighter and you flick off the crown cap, and there you go.
Yeah.
And I think it suits that. The other thing is we kind of, for me, I think it's going to be a good idea to brand the Saboteur on its own. It's become really popular, which is amazing. That's what we want. The most exciting thing is to have someone drink your wine and smile and be happy. That's like the best thing ever. So the Saboteur Red kind of want to rebrand it and make it its own as well. When they're together, there's this perception that they're second labels. So just trying to just change that a bit. So that's the idea. Maybe we do a completely different packaging, different closure. Need to think about that. But
maybe
so
bag
far,
and box. Wait, no. Too far.
I've looked at bag and box. Someone asked me about it, but I was like, no, you. For me, I want to be low sulfites, just promised grapes in the bottle, nothing else. And bag in the box, you unfortunately do need to do that. That's the research says you have to put a lot more sulfur in, and I think the plastic.
It's not as temperature sensitive. The plastic.
And the plastic eventually what's the word, goes into the wine, or
seeps into it, leaks into
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
It's my science is great.
Yeah.
So no, bag in the box is pretty cool, but for the wine you're making, I don't think it'll work.
Sure. Yeah.
Thoughts been there?
No. No, I think you really like hit on one of the things that I was thinking when you were saying that, and it was like about kind of creating as in a way as a standalone brand, because it's really easy to think of something as like a second label and then immediately associate that with lesser.
Yeah.
Right. Where in a way this isn't lesser, it's just a different approach to the same kind of wine, a different approach to the same grape rather.
And it's definitely our responsibility to show you that it's not.
Can't
expect the whole world to know that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. And I think, for me, I'm actually quite excited about it. I don't think we'll change the label, but there'll be some difference with the Saboteur red. Yeah.
I'm not excited about the cork, but that's okay. That's not my...
Instead, you're going to hate this question.
No.
Might be a bamboo cork. That's the craze.
Ooh, there we go. That's the craze. That's funny. No, I think this is so cool. And it's, again, I feel very lucky to have this conversation with you, and you've traveled so much and you've been doing so much. And so I'm really appreciative for your time. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on?
I can't think. I don't know. No, I think, the wines, the family.
Yeah. Drink more of it.
Yeah, drink more, and I promise you will feel better, not worse.
Yeah.
Nothing in there is harmful.
Exactly, yeah. Are you guys experiencing, I guess this is I don't want to go too on a negative tear by any means, but are you guys experiencing challenges? Maybe you don't produce a lot, so maybe it's harder to understand a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. Are you experiencing any issues with this wave of like non-drinking and things like that? Or you guys feel okay down there?
I mean, maybe I seem very relaxed, but there's definitely things that stress me out, and I would say, there's the people that are drinking less, but there was this really nice article that came out that I was sent, and it's not that people are drinking less, they're just drinking consciously. So I think the guys making wine in this style, minimal intervention, farming well, that is becoming more popular. So I would say if I was a really big bulk producer, I think I'd be more stressed. So I'm actually excited that this is the time to shine. For me, selling wine 8 years ago, people would not understand this wine. It's like, it's not even that funky, but 8 years ago, this was really funky. Skin contact.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's how they used to do it. So we're going back now.
Done it like that for a long time.
Yeah. And so that sort of stuff was like creepy to people. And now selling the wine now, this is like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So to see that change is really cool. And to see these wines have more of a place is actually exciting. So as much as it's easier said than done, I think it's a good idea to look on the positive side of that. I did try a non-alcoholic wine the other night, and it was interesting. But it has a place, and I understand why people have it. I think I want people to drink more good wine. Definitely drink more good wine, eat good food, get some good fresh air, and keep moving, I guess. All the things that are good for you.
I think that's perfect. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like, I think it's really easy on the importer side to be thinking about it a little bit more kind of doom and gloom of like, oh, people aren't drinking. But you're right. I think it's all changing a little bit more towards conscious consumption and like understanding what you're supporting with your dollars. And, I've always said that I think it's kind of this pendulum effect that happened during the pandemic. People were drinking White Claw because it's healthy and low calorie. And then they realized they have no idea how it's made or what the spirit is. And then they were like, oh, drinking's bad. And then it's kind of like coming back to the front of like, well, if I'm going to drink, I want to drink something that resonates with me or something that like makes sense or supports something that like I actually care about. You know what I mean? So. But
we all know this. It's, if you eat well and drink well, you should be fine.
Yeah.
And my house doctor always, when I ever go to him with whatever issues. Touch wood, I luckily don't really get sick. But if I have gone there, he's like, "You're not drinking enough red wine."
That's
I'm like,
funny.
"Oh,
That's
no,
awesome.
I'm not." Okay.
That's so hilarious.
Yeah.
Touch wood, not knock on wood. That was funny. Another little cultural thing. Is there any words of wisdom, anything you want to share, any statements you want to make?
Yeah, I realize I've had a long time to think about this
No,
one. I haven't.
no.
I think I could have a lot of words of wisdom, but to think of one, especially because talking about wine, want people to know that there's definitely this scaredness of being in wine and scaredness of asking questions. And I've realized that I know about wine because of my parents. And if you don't have that privilege of being from a wine family, how do you get into it? Via friends or people that are in the industry. And I kind of want to make sure people are not afraid to. It's no dumb question. I mean, there is, but I think you'll know. But in general, there's no dumb question. Yeah. And I want people to be more excited to try wine, taste it. And the only thing that should be important is that, do you like it? And not care what anyone says. So not kind of be swayed in that. So, I guess feel happy to be included in wine and not scared.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing.
I think that's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. I think, we all have to do our part to make it a little bit more approachable as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But, it's conversations like this.
It's scary. My dad actually has this story which made me gave me goosebumps. It was this guy who was 18 in the village close to us, would come on holiday. And generally an 18-year-old walking into a tasting room, they don't get the time of day. And my dad apparently would sit with him, and then we only had one Shiraz, and they'd talk about it, and then never heard from this guy again. And my parents traveling to Piedmont, and they didn't have their accommodation fell through. So in this village that we live in, words getting around, and someone messaged my dad to say, "Oh, I know someone who knows you," and he gets a message saying, "Hi Niels, I don't know if you remember me, but when I was 18, I used to come to your tasting room and you took this time to teach me about wine. And I've bought a property in Piedmont and I'm making wine, and I want to repay the favor, so come stay with me." And my parents went and stayed with him. It's giving me goosebumps again. And that's kind of what I was getting at. I know sometimes I maybe talk in circles. It's just those things are so special. And it always reminded me, if a young person walks into our tasting room, don't look at them like, "Oh, 18-year-old who just wants to get drunk." It's like someone who's young and excited to learn about wine, which can be intimidating, but I don't want it to be. So that story is going to always stick with me, and it's just a reminder. So
that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, you never realize how big of an impact you have on people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. That's so cool. All right, let's wrap it up. I kept you for a long time, and
good.
Thanks for making the time. I know you got some more exploring to do. So
Cheers.
Ali.
Thank you so much for having me.